right, welcome back to the Command Your Brand show. I am your host, Josh Silvestro, brand ambassador of Command Your Brand. So in this episode, I actually have a very special guest speaker who's also happens to be a podcast host himself. He's an all-around interesting guy in the area of real estate and just the longevity of how people just stay in real estate. So I'd like to introduce you guys to Brad. Brad, thanks for joining the show, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. This is great. It's always nice being on the guest side of the podcast and not just the host side. So it is nice, and I appreciate you having me on.
It's such a fun little thing, and I love talking to podcasts because they get my understanding of how things in the world works. You know, so I guess we'll start off for people who don't know you and they want to get to know a little bit about yourself. So could you just tell us your background and like why you got into real estate and just a podcast host?
Well, it was kind of by chance. I was supposed to be a big rock star. From the time I was 7 till the time I was 14, I was in music, and then I became a singer and was on a show called Star Search, which was basically the American Idol of today. So it wasn't supposed to be real estate. It was the furthest thing from my mind. But my father gave me, it's funny how things work, right? And I said that to you before we went live. Nobody really is, usually people are not in high school going, you know what? I just can't wait to get out of high school. I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to go right to being a realtor. It doesn't typically happen. So that was not my dream, but my dad gave me an idea of something to fall back on. And because in music, a lot of times with the musical career, you're either rich or you're poor. Right. There's really no in between in music. Now, it's gotten a little better with the onset of the social media and things like that. You can make a couple bucks in music that you could survive. But it was very odd back then. So I had enough disappointments. I had written enough songs that were turned down by record labels and went through that whole thing. And by the time I was 21 or 22, my dad said, you know what, you need to find something, to back as a backup just in case. And so he said, what about sales? And I said, okay, I'm thinking like car sales or something like that, whatever. And he's like, how about real estate sales? And at the time he said this, I had a ponytail down the middle of my back. So I'm thinking nobody's buying a house from a hippie. You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen. But, what I did is they always say fake it till you make it. I joined Century 21 franchise and had my ponytail tucked behind my jacket, the suit jacket. And, people would usually figure it out. They'd look around and go, oh, he's got a ponytail. But then, it started to work. And, I think I realized that you go through life in the beginning of what you have as a talent. Mm-hmm. And I knew my talent at the time was singing, and I had passion for it too. I had a lot of passion for it. But what started to happen is the passion started to fade as the disappointments started to mount up. Mm-hmm. So what my dad enabled me to do, which I would have never found this career without him saying this, I found another talent that I had. And I'm not doing this to pat myself in the back or anything like that. I'm just saying I found something I had talent in. And what I found is that the passion then came later on. I think the talent was there, that I had the ability to sell. I had the ability, actually, it's not even the ability to sell. It's the ability to relate with people. It's the ability to connect. John Maxwell says all the time that, everybody can communicate, but few people can connect.
Right.
So true. So true. And that's what's important. And I was able to connect with people and it made a good paycheck. And eventually I was like, you know what, this is working for me, and I got really tied into it. So that's how I started. And that was in 1992. Here I am now in 24, almost 25. Yeah. And, I've been doing this for going on 33 years.
Wow.
Also said I never wanted to own a real estate company. Said never. Up until 7 years ago, I said, I never want to own a real estate company. I have no desire. I don't want to manage people. I want to be independent, sell homes, and I'm happy. So 7 years ago, I got the opportunity with another person to buy Keller Williams franchise. So guess what we did? We bought the Keller Williams franchise. So now I'm a real estate company owner too, which is kind of fun.
Wow, that's so funny. And it's kind of interesting too, because you went from, music to like now a real estate person of like, I run and own a company that you just decide not to have, and now you have it.
Yeah, it is funny how you tell yourself you don't want to do something, and it happens. But you know what it is? You have to be open to opportunity. I think a lot of times we all get opportunities. It's the people that see it. You know what I mean? Somebody could have gotten the same opportunity with the Keller Williams franchise. And I bet a lot of people did. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm sure a lot of the other agents in our county got that call that were in the top 5 or top 10%. I don't know that, but I bet a lot of there was definitely others that probably turned it down. You know, they didn't want that opportunity, or they weren't ready for that opportunity. So it just shows you that you sometimes you just have to be open-minded to change. We talked about change, you know.
Yeah.
Change is really something that we should definitely look at. You don't always have to change, but at least look at it. Give it a shot. See what's there.
Yeah. I think it's fun. It's really funny too, now that you mentioned about change and like how you have to change your, you know, the whole concept of that is like, so just to get a little bit about me, I used to have the biggest fear of stage fright for so many years.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
And I could not build the courage to go in front of someone, like just anything, like you name it. I just couldn't really bring the energy up to just do it. And funny enough, I was like, I'll never be part of that. And funny enough, now I'm a podcast host.
Yeah, that's amazing. But you know what? Yeah. What did you do? You stepped outside of that. Right. You stepped outside of that fear. And now imagine if you would have let that fear control you. Imagine if that controlled your life. Here's the thing too. That's just one instance. What if that fear that you had was controlling other things that you missed out on? You know what I mean? That's the other thing. So we have to, fear is nothing good ever happens in comfort. You know, there's really, obviously laying on it, being at the beach with palm trees and blue water and all that stuff, that's relaxing, that's comfortable, but that's vacation. Okay. Right. So in real life, nothing really great happens inside of comfort. It's outside of comfort where great things happen.
Right.
And look at you now. You're doing podcasts every day or whatever you do. But imagine if you let that fear control you.
Absolutely. And it's such an interesting thing, just even for me, just coming, like, I wouldn't say coming out, but like really just being able to just do it. And when you've done it once, you're like, oh, I can do it so many more times. And I think that's it's the part of, you have to just do it and then it'll just flow. You know what I mean? And I found it such a fascinating thing. I'm sure with you, with real estate and selling things, it was like you probably were scared the first time you were selling, right?
Oh, absolutely. And there's still times, there's still things that, you get in situations where maybe it's a different listing or a different sale than you've ever experienced, or ever worked with. Right now I'm doing more in commercial sales, in commercial real estate. And, that's outside my comfort zone. I kind of pushed that aside for 30 some years because I didn't want to dive into it. I didn't want to go into that place, and now I'm starting to do it just because it's something different. It's something that I can expand my knowledge on real estate, and maybe I can serve people in a different way than they've been served before in the commercial realm, Yeah.
So for you, I guess, like, what was the moment where you sort of got a click? I call it a click. Like, wow, this is what I'm good at, and this is what I'm going to do. Like, what gave you that initial click?
I think it was right back then. I think what it was is I wasn't getting the results I wanted in music. And then when I got into the real estate thing, I thought it was just to kind of appease my dad in a way. I mean, not that he was pushing me in any direction. He's always been very, very supportive of my music. My parents are wonderful. Yeah. But he was giving me an idea or a possibility of something else. And if I wouldn't have, as a coach, he was my, your parents are your coach, up until, you get out of the house, they're still your coach, actually. And they're still coaching, but he was my coach and saying, hey, look at other things, maybe something can give you that thrill that you get from music. And what it was is I remember going to my first settlement and looking at that check and going, wow, that wasn't bad. I just sold this house and made those people happy. This all went really well. And I got paid for that, and I actually enjoyed it, and that was it's when it went, man. I just clicked, and then I started cutting my hair shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, so I didn't have to hide my ponytail anymore. Yeah. And now my hair is just falling out, and I can't even grow any hair. So it's perfect, full circle.
Yeah, you should have just kept it in a little Ziploc bag. Like, yes, this is when I first started.
Or a major comb over, I just kind of comb that puppy all the way up and around,
Yeah, man. That's great, man. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And I think it's really interesting because, like, I know a lot of people are into it and some people have never really made it to a business. It's sort of been like a side thing as like an investment that they kind of do. So I guess like for you, what would you think would be helpful for people to kind of like how do I get into that space and really take advantage of all this stuff that's going on?
You mean as far as the technology and stuff like that, or what kind of stuff?
Yeah, like real estate, like just the whole idea of real estate.
Oh, it's a great industry to get into.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
anybody that's thinking about doing it, they should just do it.
Yeah.
There's ups and downs though. I mean, 2008 was ugly. A lot of realtors lost their houses. A lot of realtors got out. But that was one time in a very large span for me that was definitely rough. But it's a great opportunity. And I think I coming up with this new concept or a new thing that I've been writing recently is that we're not real estate agents, we're real change agents. So when people, this is the first time I'm talking about this concept that I'm actually writing about it, is everybody says real estate agent. Okay, real estate agent sounds very, very cold, very business oriented. Okay. That is the furthest thing from what we are. We are actually here to provide real change in your life. And so that's why I call it a real change agent. And go with me a little bit on this, is that if you think about it, we used to always say as realtors, oh, we're here to assist you in the largest investment of your life. Okay, well, it sounds cold. No, I'm here to help you with the largest change in your life. You're picking up every friggin' thing you own, your children, your possessions, and you're moving it from one place to another. What's the biggest, most comfortable place that we have in our life? What do we always say? It's just good to come back home. Right? So just imagine changing that comfort place and doing it in you're settling on one house, you're in the next one the next day. So that is the most stressful time in somebody's life. And what we are here to do is to provide the knowledge, the assistance, and to help them make the biggest change of their life. Not the biggest investment, the biggest change.
Yeah. And I guess for people who are, for example, can definitely say that there's a lot of people out there have not bought their own houses. They have not done their own research on it. What do you find in terms of selling a house that people, when they buy a house, they make a mistake on in terms of buying a real estate or buying a house or anything like that?
Not having the right agent.
Why is that?
Because you got to find, and I'm not saying find somebody that's in the business 32 years like myself, because there's a lot of agents that are in the business 32 years that suck. But also there's a lot of agents that are in their first year that are amazing because they have so much passion and so much caring about what they're doing. They're good at figuring out the change. So I would say find that right agent that fits with you. Maybe do some research. I mean, now we have Google today. Go do some research and see what kind of reviews they have. Right. That's very important in finding an agent. But find somebody who clicks, find somebody that understands it, and somebody that's that's there for you. It's on your side. I think that's important.
Interesting. It's such a weird time also too. I always find there's always and it's kind of like what you talked about before, is like there's an uncomfortableness about it, and I guess for you, you've obviously made people more comfortable in terms of buying a house or getting a house or find what's the right one. How do you make it for people who are like, oh my God, like I'm buying a house, I'm freaking out about this. What do you do for that? Or how do you settle the storm, if that makes sense?
Well, one of the things I do is I say, it's okay. Freak out. It's okay. Freak out. It's all right. This is going to be, it's going to be one of the most amazing experiences, but there's also going to be some things that are going to stress you out. But guess what? I'm here to help you through that. That's what I'm here for. Lean on me, ask the questions, and I'll let you know if their feelings, when I first got into business, there was a person that was a trainer from somewhere and he would carry a pack of Smarties around. Right. And he carried the pack of Smarties and he would carry them. And he'd say, when he would write up the agreement of sale, and this is back before we had computers to write the agreement of sale, we were writing them on the table. And before they leave, he'd say, wait. He said, before you go home, now this is after buyers sign the agreement, they're all like nervous, they're sweating, they're like, ready to puke. And he'd say, I'm going to give you something. He goes, here's a pill. That was Smarties. Here's a pill. He goes, I want to give one to each of you. He said, now tonight, when you go home and you're laying in bed and you think, oh my God, what did we just do? You know what I mean? He goes, that is a buyer remorse pill. I want you to take it and you're going to go, oh yeah, I'm okay. Because Brad said it'd be okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and it was something that I don't do it anymore, but it was a thing that a guy that was in real estate actually said that he would do. There's other ways of doing it. But what I say to people, by the way, when you go home tonight, and you go to bed and lay your head down, I can tell you right now, you're going to have second thoughts about what you just signed.
Yeah.
So just know that that's normal. It's all about building expectations. Expectations is everything. If people know that the feeling they have is the feeling they're supposed to have, they are okay with it. It's the misery loves company thing, everybody wants to know that you're feeling. If you have a bad elbow and you find somebody else with a bad elbow, don't you feel better? Yeah. Like, oh my God, he's got the same thing I have. That's great. Awesome. His elbow's screwed up too.
It's like one time you wake up in a hospital. Oh, I was in a coma. Oh, me too. It's like,
I think I'd rather have the elbow thing, but
yeah, that's right.
That's funny.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I was more curiosity because, some people it is definitely an interesting landscape to be in. And I find that it always constantly changes. And for you as a real estate, person who kind of is involved in that, is there like things, I'm sure you probably get like updates and like you kind of study and learn the field? Because I know no one's ever really perfect at selling and keeping track with everything. So like, what do you do as like since you own the company and you kind of deal a lot with that, what do you do to maintain that? Because I know for you, your specialty is like longevity, like how long something can last, you know what I mean? Like, of course, there's probably been ups and downs in real estate, but like, how did you, like, it's kind of like, I wouldn't say how did you survive, but how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you got to stay relevant. You really have to stay relevant in your business. And I don't care if it's real estate or whatever it is. Yeah. I a couple days ago, I just got back from Atlantic City and I was down in Atlantic City for what's called Triple Play. Triple Play is a place where, it's where all the 3 states get together, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And they have all kinds of convention stuff. They have continuing education, things like that. The main reason I go there is not I got my education, other places before I go there. But I go there actually to find out the new gadgets. What are the new things? An exhibit hall is always the place where people are going to show their new wares.
Yeah.
They're going to show you what they've got going on. So I walk up and down every aisle in the exhibit hall. And I talk to people. I look and see if something's interesting. And then I go up and I start talking to them. If I can get one good idea or 2 good ideas out of doing that, walking back and forth, it takes me about 2.5, 3 hours. And I have conversations with who I want to most of the time. And, and they're there. They have passion about what they're selling. So I want to hear about it, and they're there for a reason. So I get ideas from there. And it keeps me on top of the industry in a different way. I think reading, you got to step on. We tell our agents all the time. I do a training here, and I tell them all the time: if your customer knows more about the market than you do, you're doing them a disservice. Mm-hmm. You should be able to go into a happy hour and talk to somebody and say, there's 400 and some homes in the market right now in Berks County. This is the average price range. This is what's going on in this community. If you can't rattle that stuff off, then you're not in this business. You're not doing the business well.
Yeah.
You really need to be the smartest person. You need to be the smartest person for real estate in the room at any given time. Unless it's with a bunch of realtors, of course.
Unless you started the whole thing. Just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I think in any place you go, if you're with your family or for Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever it is, you want people to know that you know your craft. You work on your craft, and that's every day. I mean, that's as a realtor, I can't tell you how many times when I'm out, like tomorrow night, I'm going out tomorrow night for a formal with my wife. And, I know people are going to say, what's the interest rate right now? What's the interest rate right now? If I don't know what it is tomorrow at that given time, and I have an app on my phone, I can look up my app on my phone. It's called, what's it called? Mortgage, something with mortgages. Yeah. Hold on. I'll tell you right now. It's Mortgage News Daily. It's a great app, by the way. Mortgage News Daily. And right there, I can see it. 6.875 for 30-year fixed, 15 years, 6.14%. So, you know what I mean? Like, I can pull that out at any given time, and I have it.
Yeah. That's great. And it's so cool because like, you're like an up-to-date dude who's like also is into technologies. Like I'm very big in technology. Like I love gadgets, computers, you name it. Like I was just looking at Samsung and it's like, you have like basically the whole house full of Samsung. It's just like you have refrigerators, you got all that stuff. Yeah. So it's something really fascinating. But I guess with like businesses, right? Like what do you find is the key? Because obviously you're most of your business, you sell houses, right? Mm-hmm. So what is it about you that keeps you successful in that business?
Networking. I'd say networking and being involved in the community. I think it's a huge thing today. And I think what's happening too, the more we walk away from the people experience and we are on our gadgets and things like that, the more the people experience is what makes people choose you. So make sure you don't get rid of that people experience, because the one way that you can, let's put it this way. There's a gazillion podcasts. There's a gazillion ways you can do Zoom and all that different stuff. And you can call them on the phone, you can text them, you can email them. But the one thing that sets you aside is not your technology. It's you. You interact with them different than anyone else in the world because you're you. There's nobody can replace that people experience. So I think it's really important that we kind of go back to that people experience a little bit more. I think we've gone to a place where it's so much technology, which I love, but I also know that it's a tool. It's not the way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm also kind of afraid to, I can only imagine people looking at ChatGPT and be like, oh, what's the real estate thing? And they're going to replace their real estate agents.
Yeah, no, you know what's funny? I use ChatGPT. I love it. I have to tell you, Josh, to me, it's changed my business again. When I go to write an email or I go to do a blast letter for Christmas or for Thanksgiving, whatever it is, I go in there and say, write a, whatever, coming from a realtor to their customers saying Happy Thanksgiving. Damn, it comes up with this beautiful message that's so warm and heartfelt. And I'm like, I couldn't have written that. You know what I mean? But that's the thing, is I use it. Now, I always read them. And if there's something that I know that I wouldn't say and my clients know I wouldn't say that, I'll take it out. Or I'll make it a little bit more casual. But use it. AI is awesome if you use it to your advantage. It's not the way, it's a tool.
Yeah. I don't know if you've read this book. There's this book that my dad actually showed me because he's in sales. And funny enough, it's I don't know if you ever read this book called Big League Sales. Did you ever read that book?
I have not read that book.
Yeah.
I think I've heard about it before though.
Yeah. It's probably one of the hardest books to find right now. Like literally you can
get out of here.
Like you look it up, it's literally a $20 book, but like if you just scour the internet, try to find it, it's like $800. It's like really hard.
Gosh.
It's really hard to find.
Is it in the Audible format or no?
I think it is. I don't actually know because it's a really old book, but I tell you, this book is such a life-changing sales book that actually helps you kind of like, because a lot of people, they give examples, like a lot of this book, because it was written in I believe this was in the 40s or 50s.
It's funny, but nothing changes.
Nothing changes.
Nothing changes.
But the thing that does, what's interesting is that this book teaches you how not to be fake with what you're selling.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I think that's kind of interesting.
Absolutely.
I think what gave it away for you, like I was like, interesting. You have a real estate agent, and like you always get the concept, and people get the concept that a salesperson, he's going to sleaze my way into buying something, no matter what it is. And I think when you said like, you want to help people to change their lives, I think that was like that was like, for me, it was like, wow, like I feel like this person can actually get me the perfect house. You know what I mean? So, and it's something I really appreciate about you. And I think what you do is like there's such a value, because it is a scary time because you're changing, you're moving, you're going from one place to another.
It's changing your utilities and changing this. If you have kids, changing school districts. I mean, what's even more stressful is try relocating from one state to the next.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking changing your license. It's a huge, huge thing. And the other thing that we kind of forget is that, we always say memories are up here, but the trigger to memories are in your home.
Right.
I mean, I can tell you, I've been in my house for 23 years. And I have had many dogs, and I still have triggers when I walk around the house of dogs that have passed, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Changing those triggers is scary because now you think, well, when I leave here, will I think about that dog anymore?
Right.
So and God forbid it's a person, that could have gone, so there's just a lot of things that are involved in where you live.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
It's so funny that you mentioned that when you said people, because I owned a house with a couple other friends of mine, and what's funny was this is the place also where my mom passed, and it was kind of interesting.
Geez.
It's funny what you said. I was like, yeah, it's so, and everyone. It's funny when you mentioned the trigger was like when you walk around there or you're in that space, it's like it feels weird. Yeah. So we actually end up selling that house because of that, because it was just so
well. And it could go either way. You can't. You get to the point. And a lot of times that happens with a spouse. If a spouse passes, a lot of times the living spouse will sell because they can't handle the memories or they can't even go into the room, their bedroom or whatever. It's sad, but that just shows you how much we think about where we live and how much it means to our lives.
Yeah. So I guess like for you, like what do you find is the key, or like if there was a checklist, like if you were buying a house and there was a checklist that every person should have of like what they should do, what they shouldn't do, what do you think that should be?
First and foremost, get your pre-approval. Get a pre-approval. The thing that most buyers do is they get attached to a price range that they are not maybe qualified for yet. So it can be depressing. So the best thing to do is get yourself pre-approved. Find out what that number is that you're comfortable with, because there's two things too with this. The lender might say, okay, you're good for up to $2,500 a month, which makes it that this is the price range you're in. You might say, holy, no way, I'm not paying $2,500 a month. So what you need to do is find out what you're comfortable paying, have the lender back that into an actual sales price, and then start looking. Because it's a waste of everybody's time, and also can be depressing when all of a sudden you're looking at $500,000 homes, and the reality is you don't want to pay that payment, or you don't even qualify for that payment if you wanted to pay it. Yeah. So it is by far, the most important thing is to go to a lender. Now, number 2 on that, which would be actually 1A. 1A is find a local lender, and find a lender that is trusted by the realtor you're working with. A lot of times people don't use online lenders. I mean, sorry, online lenders, whatever. But
I don't get canceled here.
What's that? I hope you don't have a sponsor that's, Wells Fargo or anything. But seriously, you find a lender that is reputable, that's in the area. And a lot of times the realtor that you've decided to use will have probably 2 or 3 relationships. And I would suggest that you strongly look at those relationships. Awesome. Because a lot of times they've worked with them many times. They know that they can come to the table when they're supposed to.
That's great, man. And I guess like for, because obviously you're a CEO and founder, or you're CEO, I would say, of this company now. So like, what do you feel is that also, because I know a lot of people that also have their own real estate type business, or they're trying to get into it. What do you find is also like, how do you run your own business? How does it actually like, that's the word I'm looking for. Tell me also like how you operate in terms of running a good team of people.
Well, the thing that I'm learning is that, I'm only 7 years into this part of my career with being a realtor and being leadership in the company. And I think that what I've been reading, and, I've done a lot of reading on this since it started, and some of the stuff you kind of know from being in business, but is leaders should create other leaders instead of followers. You try not to have a hierarchy within the company. We all have our job. I just happen to be one of the owners. Yeah. Okay. Now, obviously, there's accountability, and there's those kind of things. But I think having a real open, conversation and feeling of that they can come to you, you can go to them. And like I said, creating leaders, letting them fail. Instead of saying, hey, you're in charge of this and micromanaging them, let them be in charge of that whatever it is, that project, and let them fail or succeed. And if they do, it's okay, because we don't fail unless we don't learn. So, I've failed tons of times. And if you're not failing, then you're not doing anything. It means you're basically sitting around doing zero. Right. Once again, you're inside your comfort zone. When you go outside the comfort zone, then that's where failure is. But failure is awesome. I mean, that's the best college you can get is failure.
Yeah, I find it's interesting too, because it's like you have to learn some way. If you're just always going to be trying to be perfect, it's never going to really work. You have to kind of learn from the steps that you take, and like, okay, like I see what I did wrong here or what I did wrong there, and I can learn from those mistakes. So I really appreciate that, because no one's perfect in what they're doing, and they obviously try to be, but it's all about practice. It's all about practicing that area of expertise, or that area you're trying to work on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think leaders, and what's funny, if you allow somebody to be a leader, they'll want to bring on other leaders too. It kind of trickles down, and I think if we're surrounded by leaders, you don't want followers. Followers don't bring value. Right. Leaders bring value. Leaders lead. So it's that's the one thing that we've been trying. And as leaders, we're constantly trying different things and seeing what works best. We're not perfect, and there's not something that says, oh, this system's the best. But so far, with what I read and what we do, we're doing pretty well with it. Culture is very important too. You need to provide a culture that you show that you care about people.
Yeah.
Those days of I'm your boss. I hate when people say you're my boss. It's like the worst thing ever. There is no boss. The only boss is, depending on what your religion is up there. But there's no boss. It's we're working together for a common goal.
Right.
That's what it is.
That's great. And I guess, one of my last things, I'm always kind of curious. Obviously, I don't know how many properties and places you've sold. I'm sure. I feel like for some, I get the picture. You've probably sold hundreds, if not thousands of them at this point.
Yeah, I think I'm like up close to 2,000 properties I've sold probably in my career. Yeah.
That's great. And I guess, were there any one of them that sticks out that was like, wow, like that was the most best sale, or that was, I just feel like I got the most pleasure selling to this person so much that like it was just a win for everyone?
There's been a couple. I mean, a lot of times the military guys always make me feel really good when I can be involved in somebody coming back from war, and they're just looking for comfort, looking for a place to live. And that's rewarding. But some of my first clients, and also my repeat clients, I have clients that I've sold, sold them 4, 5, 6 homes in my career, So it's those are always really rewarding in that they make you feel good because that they have a ton of choices to go find somebody to work with, and they decided to stick with me, which is very cool. It's a good feeling. It's a really good feeling. Yeah,
that's so cool. It's funny. It's like, people come to you. I love how people just come to you again and again, because I feel like it's even more rewarding because that what you're doing is the right thing and you're helping someone each time you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the part that I love. That's the part that's the best, and then also seeing their kids later. You see their kids out in the grocery store, and you're like, holy crap! I remember when you were born and we were walking through homes. That's pretty crazy too. But it's fun. It's rewarding. Very rewarding.
Yeah. Totally. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the time that you kind of given me and, your busy schedule of selling, and you're spending up, 30 minutes with me. So I really appreciate the time.
No problem. It's great conversation.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. I love talking to other podcasters, other people like yourself, and really how people just do it the right way. And I find there's actually, I wouldn't say that you're in a haystack of like, I'm picking the haystack, but you kind of are picking people from the haystack of like who is success and what's not. And I find that there's always, and a lot of people, funny enough, think that, success is related to money, and like, of course there's some value to that, but it's like not really money involved in being successful, Yeah,
that's being redefined a lot right now. I mean, the word wealth is being redefined, and a lot of your big speakers like John Maxwell and your Ed Milet's and those kind of people, they're putting that possibility or that idea out there of what wealth really is. And one of the things that I love was, it was actually Gary Keller, who was, the founder of Keller Williams. Yeah. He said, it's doing what you want, when you want, for as long as you want, and with who you want.
Nice.
That's the definition of wealth.
Wow. That's a good definition.
Think about it. If I don't have a lot of money, yet I retire and I love to fish, and now I fish every single day for as much as I want, with who I want, for as long, that there is wealth for that person. That's wealthy.
Yeah.
So there is no dollar amount to it at that point. That is wealth. So there's the wealth thing is just, it has to do with who you are. What is your definition of wealth?
Right.
I think that's, I don't know if you've heard that before, but that's a good one. That one's from Gary Keller. I love it.
That's a very good one. Well, awesome. Well, I really appreciate the time you kind of given us. And, I would love for people to, because I'm a big believer of people reaching out and like really connecting with other people. And as you know, networking is and connecting with other people are great. How do people find or reach out to you or your team? Like how can people find you and kind of get to know you better?
Best way to do that is bradweisman.com. And the only hard part about that is making sure you spell my last name right. It's Weisman, bradweisman.com.
Because you're very wise, right?
Yes, I've heard that a couple times in school. That's funny.
That's great, man. Well, I really appreciate the time you kind of given me. And I also, of course, thank you guys for listening to this channel. If you guys like this stuff, like and subscribe to us. And if you guys want Brad back on, please also let me know too. And, thanks for enjoying the show, and we'll see you next time. And thank you, Brad, for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome.